The landlady burst into my room this morning, her face pale as a sheet, breathing heavily, eyes wide with fear. "Last night," she said, "my husband and son were away at a wedding over in Florida. I had to sleep alone upstairs, and I swear to God, kids, I saw something." Jessica and I froze, hearts racing. What did you see?" we asked. She told us that after going out for coffee with some co-workers, she came home and went straight to bed. The second floor was cooler, so she lay down and dozed off. Around 2 a.m., caught between sleep and wakefulness, she heard a knocking sound. Thump, thump, thump. It came from inside the room. She assumed her husband and son had come home late and was about to ignore it, until the knocking didn't stop. It kept going, louder, closer, until it halted right at the foot of her bed. Still thinking it was her husband climbing into bed, she opened her eyes, ready to scold him for waking her up. But what she saw was not her husband. Her voice trembled as she recalled it. There was this tall, black figure, just standing at the end of the bed, staring at me, didn't move, didn't speak. She said she tried to scream, but her body was paralyzed, completely frozen. Not even a whisper came out of her mouth. Jessica and I leaned in, tense. "Then what happened?" I asked. "I don't know," she whispered. "I passed out. When I woke up, it was 5 in the morning, and it was gone." Haley, our know-it-all neighbor, just laughed. "Sounds like sleep paralysis, ma'am. You were exhausted. Your brain can play tricks on you when it's tired. It wasn't a ghost, it was just your mind." Then she went on about brain chemistry, dream phases, and hallucinations during REM sleep. According to her, all of it was just the brain recreating images and feelings from memory, nothing supernatural. But I disagreed. I believed in spirits. I had seen things I couldn't explain. Years ago, my family moved from the countryside to a quiet village nestled in the Black Hills. Only a few dozen homes were scattered along winding stone roads overgrown with tall grass and weeds. Our closest neighbor was a man named Aiden, a blacksmith. People called him Black Aiden. He had 7 children, all strong, healthy, and smart, except for the second daughter, Rachel. She was different. She was 22 but had the mind of a child. Innocent, slow, and often left behind while the rest of the family went out to work. One day, while everyone else was out in the fields, Rachel stayed home, and something went horribly wrong. Mr. Aiden had 7 children. All of them were bright, strong, and healthy, except for the second daughter. Her name was Rachel. She was 22 years old, but her mind was stuck at the level of a child. People in the village often saw her walking barefoot, talking to herself, or playing alone in the mud, as if the world around her didn't exist. One day, the whole family went out to work in the fields. Rachel stayed home alone. No one thought much of it, but that day, something changed. There were always rumors about missing animals, strange rituals, and the kind of dark stories no one dared to tell after dark. That afternoon, Rachel caught a few cats hiding near the back of the house. She mimicked what she had seen others do. She slaughtered them, tore them open, played with the blood, and then she ate them. Raw, liver, guts, even the unborn kittens. She didn't cook. She didn't hesitate. She laughed. When the family came home, they found her lying on the bed, convulsing violently. Her mouth was covered in blood, her eyes rolled back, her limbs twitching uncontrollably. They rushed her to the nearest hospital, but it was too late. Rachel was dead. No one cried. Her funeral was quiet, swift, cold. It was like everyone just wanted to forget her, pretend she was never there. A little over a week passed. That afternoon, I was walking home from school. Just as I turned the corner near our house, I saw a group of people crowded near Mr. Aiden's front gate. They were whispering, pointing, faces pale as chalk. I pushed through the crowd to see what was going on. And then it happened. A scream tore through the air, sharp, high-pitched, and full of something that didn't sound human. I turned just in time to see Madison, Rachel's younger sister, burst out of the front door. Her hair was hanging in tangled clumps, her eyes wide and white, her mouth stretched open in a twisted grin. Her hands flailed as she screeched and laughed and cried all at once. It didn't sound like Madison anymore. It sounded older, darker, as if something had climbed inside her and was trying to claw its way out. People backed away. No one dared get close. I've always thought of myself as brave, but in that moment, my hands went cold, my body stiff, and all I could think was, don't let her see me, don't let her touch me. Because that thing in Madison's body wasn't Madison anymore. That day, Dad was away at work. It was just me and Mom at home. She pulled me into the corner of the kitchen and whispered, "Rachel's spirit came back again. She's been inside Madison since morning, screaming, throwing things. We still don't know what the hell she wants." Both of us were scared to death, but curiosity got the better of us. We cracked the door open just enough to peek through. There she was, Madison, standing alone in the middle of the yard. She was screaming, her arms flailing, her voice rising and falling like something ancient was trying to escape from her throat. And then, without warning, she started laughing. A high-pitched, hollow, bone-chilling laugh. The kind of laugh that never belonged to Madison. It belonged to Rachel. That exact laugh, same tone, same timing. Rachel used to do that all the time when she was still alive. For nearly half an hour, she kept on like that, crying, laughing, screaming. And then she dropped. Just collapsed onto the ground like her strings had been cut. Her eyes rolled back, her limbs went limp. The Aiden family rushed out to carry her inside. They rubbed her arms, tried to wake her, called her name. After what felt like forever, she finally came to. Confused, blank, like nothing had happened. But this wasn't a one-time thing. It kept happening. Every few days, the same scene would play out. Madison screaming, possessed, terrifying the whole village. Each time it happened, it felt darker, more violent, more Rachel. One day, Mr. Aiden came over, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "It's happening again," he said, barely above a whisper. "She keeps coming back, keeps tormenting Madison. But sometimes she just cries. She says she's starving, that there's no food for the dead, that everything we leave on the altar gets stolen by other spirits before she can even touch it. She begs us to give her food, real food. She says what she wants, and if I buy it and leave it on the altar, it's always gone by morning." Mrs. Ashley didn't believe in ghosts. She just sat there, sipping her tea, half listening, rolling her eyes. But my mom and I, we were hooked. Eyes wide, mouths open. We believed. "Did she say anything else?" my mom asked, leaning forward. Mr. Aiden nodded slowly. "Yeah. One time, she cried and begged us to be careful. Said something about thieves. Warned us someone was trying to steal the pigs." "Pigs?" my mom echoed. "She said she saw them late at night. A group of men, creeping around the pig pen. So she scared them off. Made the pigs go wild. The thieves ran away screaming." I remember that night. I went outside and saw it for myself. Strange footprints. Dozens of them, circling the pen. As we were talking, Mr. Aiden's youngest son ran up, breathless. "Dad! It's happening again. Madison! She's talking nonsense again." Without a word, Mr. Aiden jumped up and ran. Every time, only he could call. Mrs. Ashley scoffed. "She's just crazy. Some mental illness, that's all. No ghosts." I sipped my tea and stared at her, calm, cold. I finally spoke. "Then how do you explain Madison knowing things she couldn't possibly know? The footprints, the thieves, Rachel's favorite foods?" No one answered. But deep down, we all knew. Rachel wasn't gone. My father was known for his nerves of steel. Back when we lived in the countryside, anytime someone drowned in the river or took their own life, people would avoid the body like it was cursed. But not my dad. He always rolled up his sleeves, stepped in and helped. He believed the dead were dead. End of story. Ghosts, spirits, possessions, all nonsense made up by weak-minded people. My mother, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. Temples, incense, prayers. She believed in everything. To her, the spiritual world was as real as the one we lived in. So every time stories like this came up, It was the same thing. My parents arguing, neither one willing to back down. But then, Rachel kept coming back. Every single day, her spirit returned. Sometimes, she didn't say a word. She'd just smash everything on the altar. Plates, candles, offerings, shattered. Other times, she would scream and demand things. Specific things. Meat, sweets, her favorite drink from when she was alive. And she was getting stronger, more violent. The Aiden household was in chaos. No one could sleep. Madison looked like a corpse herself, pale, hollow-eyed, trembling all the time. Just 3 days in, and she already looked like she'd aged 10 years. They tried talking to the spirit, begging, pleading. Nothing worked. That's when Mr. Aiden secretly went to find a shaman. The first one came, stood inside their house for maybe 5 minutes, then packed up and left. Said nothing, just shook his head and walked out the door. Refused to help. Said the thing inside that house was beyond him. The second one was different. He was from Marfa, about 30 kilometers away. Aiden begged, pleaded, offered extra money. Finally, the man agreed. When he arrived, the whole village gathered around the house. We stood in a loose circle, whispering to each other, holding our breath. He carried with him 8 bamboo stakes. Tied to each one was a thin yellow paper, covered in strange symbols, black ink scrawled like spider legs. He placed them evenly around the house. Then he took out a bundle of herbs, dried, twisted, some still sticky with sap, and stuck them into the ground around the stakes. He drew a circle with powder. And then, he started the ritual. It lasted nearly an hour. He chanted in a low, guttural voice, something between a whisper and a growl. The air grew thick, heavy. Even the wind seemed to die down. It was like something was watching. When he finished, the shaman wiped sweat from his brow and said nothing. Just walked to the front gate, turned to Mr. Aiden, and said, "Don't speak her name. Don't leave food out. Don't let her in." That was it. The entire Aiden family stayed locked inside the rest of that day, watching, waiting. Day 2 came and went, silent. Day 3, just as quiet. People began to smile again. Talk returned to normal. It felt like we had finally escaped the nightmare. On the 4th day, everything fell apart. It started just before noon. We were eating lunch when we heard it, screaming, crashing, chaos pouring from Mr. Aiden's house next door. The spirit had returned. And this time, it wasn't just angry. It was violent. Madison was in the yard, her eyes wide and wild, lips twisted into something between a snarl and a grin. She gripped a chunk of firewood and began swinging, blindly, violently, smashing it at her younger siblings. Mr. Aiden tried to intervene. He ran toward her, arms out, but she threw him off like a rag doll. He hit the wooden pillar of the house, head first, and dropped like a stone. The voice coming from her wasn't Madison's. It was low, guttural, cracked. Like something ancient, something wrong. Not words, just rage, howling, hissing, moaning. For more than an hour she thrashed, screamed, destroyed. Then, just as suddenly, she collapsed. My mother and I sat frozen, holding each other in silence. Only my father had the courage to go check on them. 2 days later, Mr. Aiden put up a "for sale" sign. By the end of the week, they were gone, moved far away, 50 kilometers at least. Nobody local wanted that house. No one even dared step near it. In time, the weeds crept in, windows cracked, paint peeled, the house just faded. And then we stopped talking about it. Until one afternoon, Dad and I were watching TV when my mom burst in, pale and breathless. She'd just come from the neighbors. Olivia saw her, she whispered. Today, she saw Madison. Dad laughed it off, said people were just superstitious. But Mom wasn't joking. She said Olivia had gone behind the Aiden house to gather herbs. There was a big cashew tree back there, thick shade, overgrown weeds. She was picking plants when something hit her back. A cashew. She didn't think much of it. Then another, and another, and another. Finally, she looked up and froze. Sitting on one of the higher branches, legs dangling, grinning from ear to ear, was Madison. Not the living, breathing girl. Not anymore. Just a smile in the trees. It wasn't until this afternoon that Olivia finally calmed down enough to tell us what happened. Her body was scratched all over. Deep cuts from thorny bushes, blood dried and crusted along her arms. She said she just ran. Didn't think. Didn't stop. Just ran. It was only later that she realized how much her skin burned, how her body ached from the wounds. Now, her house is packed with people. Neighbors, relatives, everyone wanting to hear the story. If you don't believe me, go see for yourself tomorrow morning. Since Olivia claimed she saw a ghost, the whole village has been buzzing. Everyone's talking about it. Women and kids are terrified. As soon as the sun sets, they bolt their doors and refuse to step outside. The road that cuts between my house and Uncle Aidan's? Empty. Dead silent at night. Some say they've seen a pale figure drifting behind the trees. Every night, my mother and I lock ourselves in early, turn off all the lights, and lay still in bed. Only my dad remains stubborn, sitting alone in front of the TV until late, while the wind howls outside like it's carrying whispers. One evening, around 7 p.m., light rain was falling. We were watching the news when we heard shouting outside. We rushed out and saw a group helping carry Uncle Caleb back home. They said they found him collapsed near the old water hole. He was unconscious, probably just a bad chill, they guessed. We all helped get him inside and tried to revive him. Eventually, he opened his eyes, but the way he looked at us, his face was pale, eyes wide, trembling. He tried to say something, but only managed a few garbled sounds before passing out again. The next day, he still wasn't himself. He barely spoke, stared blankly, terrified, like he had seen something he couldn't forget. His family took him to the district hospital. He stayed there almost a week before he started to come back. The day he returned, the whole neighborhood stopped by to check on him. I went with my mother. He looked so weak, his face still colorless, eyes darting nervously around the room, as if whatever he saw was still following him. We lived close by, but to be honest, I never cared much about what happened at Aidan's house. I didn't believe in ghosts until that night. It was cold and raining. I had just butchered a chicken and poured myself a few shots of rice wine to warm up, but the bottle ran dry after 2 tiny glasses. So I grabbed an empty jug and walked toward Tyler's place to buy more. The road was deserted, not a soul in sight. The only sound was the wind brushing through the trees. As I neared the old Aidan house, I saw a figure crouched by the roadside. Looked like they were catching something. I frowned. Who the hell stands that close to that cursed house at this hour? I stepped closer. They were wearing a raincoat. One hand held a toad. The other was reaching for another on the wet road. I chuckled and shouted, "Catching toads for dinner? Not scared you'll end up like Rachel." The person slowly looked up. Then, a voice. Hoarse, strange, but familiar. "Uncle Aidan, it's me. Rachel, can I drink with you?" I froze. The figure stepped closer, pulled down the raincoat hood. That face, pale, cold, smiling. A wide grin stretched across its face, exposing a row of straight, ghost-white teeth. I staggered back. My chest tightened, my vision blurred. Then, everything went black. By the time he finished the story, everyone looked pale and shaken. I held tightly to my dad's arm all the way home, my heart pounding in my chest, hands cold and trembling. The whole village fell into silence after that. Streets that were already quiet now felt completely deserted. Even the air felt heavier, as if something unseen was watching. But my dad still didn't believe it. He brushed everything off as imagination or hallucination. He kept watching TV late into the night, still walked by that cursed house like nothing had ever happened. One night I woke up suddenly and looked at the clock. It was 11:20. I noticed Mom wasn't next to me, so I got up and stepped into the living room. That's when I saw both my parents standing completely still, eyes fixed on the abandoned house through the window. I crept closer and froze, There was a light. That house, the one no one dared approach, was lit from the inside. Mom pulled me down beside her and whispered, "The light's been on since 9. We don't know if it's a person or something else." She tried to sound calm. Probably just some junkies sleeping there. But my dad shook his head. "There are no addicts in this village. I'll go see for myself." Mom stood up, grabbed his arm. "Are you crazy? What if it's not a person? What if it's something else? What if it kills you?" But Dad was already reaching for the kitchen knife. Without another word, he stepped outside, crossed the fence, and disappeared into the darkness. Mom sat down hard, trembling. I didn't move. I just stared at the window, heart racing. 10 minutes passed. Then the door opened. Dad came back. The knife was still in his hand, but his fingers were shaking violently. His face was pale, drained of color, like he'd seen death itself. I rushed up, asking him what happened, over and over, but he didn't answer, not a word. He just sat down slowly and stared through the window, at the light that was still glowing in that cursed house. My father walked over to the cabinet, grabbed his bottle of rice wine, and downed a few shots in silence. He didn't say a word, just sat there, staring into space. My mother, knowing him well, didn't ask anything. She just pulled me into the bedroom to sleep. From that night on, my father stopped staying up late. Instead, he'd drink alone and go to bed early. He changed. A little over a month later, everyone in our neighborhood was shocked. A new family moved into the haunted house, a young couple with 2 small kids. They cleared the yard, trimmed the trees, repainted the walls, turned the whole place around like nothing ever happened. A few days later, the new homeowner came over to introduce himself. His name was Ethan. Said he just moved in from another town. My dad, still skeptical, asked him directly, "Did anyone tell you about the history of that house?" Ethan just smiled. "I heard, but I still bought it. Dealing with spirits, that's kind of a family thing." My father raised an eyebrow. "Even the most famous exorcists couldn't handle that place. And you think you can?" Ethan nodded. "My family. We've been spiritual practitioners for 3 generations. My father and I stopped doing it professionally, but we still have all the sacred books, charms, and rituals. We only use them when necessary." My dad leaned in. "So what did you do? Some ritual? A blessing?" Ethan took a sip of tea. "Nothing too fancy. I just placed an old ancestral mirror on our altar. Ever since then, nothing's happened." He paused, then added in a quieter voice, "Well, except for the first night. I had a dream. A little girl, wearing a red floral dress, standing at our front gate, crying. She said, 'Please, take the mirror down. Just let me come in one last time. I promise. I'll never return again.'" The next morning, Ethan turned the mirror face down. Moments later, a massive black butterfly the size of 2 human palms floated through the house. It circled the ceiling once, twice, then vanished into thin air. Ethan paused. "Honestly, I never believed in ghosts. But over a month ago, I saw something, and it changed my mind forever." My dad, who had been silent, finally spoke. "So, that night, what did you see? Why wouldn't you tell us before?" That's when my mother joined in. "Now that it's gone, I can finally say it. That night, when we saw the lights on in that haunted house, we didn't believe it was a ghost, so we walked over, quietly, slowly. We crept up to the window and peeked inside." She paused. I could see her hand trembling. There was a girl, sitting in the middle of the room, brushing her hair. She wore a red floral nightgown. It was the same one our second daughter wore, the night she died. I nearly collapsed, but I forced myself to walk away. Since then, I've had to drink every night, just to forget that image. Ethan smiled softly. "It's okay now. She's gone." That evening, my dad and Ethan shared a drink, laughing and talking like old friends who had been through war together. Our whole family finally felt safe again, And just like that, our little neighborhood returned to peace.